Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to IDAGIO Live. It's Thursday, so it must be Thursday with Thomas. On IDAGIO Live, the place where classical music happens. And Thursdays has become really quite a fun project for me because I get to meet all sorts of colleagues that I probably wouldn't meet very easily in a normal world. But in the digital universe, we are all interchangeably around one another. And tonight, a wonderful conversation with a wonderful group of musicians, the Boulanger Trio. We're going to talk about their global concert hall concert and their repertoire and their uh, grounding, founding process, all those sorts of wonderful things. I'm not sure when I would have met these wonderful ladies, but I get to meet them tonight, the same as with you. So without any further ado, here we have Birgit Erz, Ilona Kindt, and Karla Haltenwanger. I wonder if I don't know if they can see your names on the screen, so I'll do it again and you can raise your hand when I, like in school. Birgit Erz.
That's me.
Yes, door number 2. Door number 3, Ilona Kindt.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. And Karla Haltenwanger.
Hi.
Right. Where are you ladies right now? Are you all in the same place or are you all over the place?
All over the place.
You don't
We're
live,
out at
you
home.
don't live in the same city.
Well, we used to live in the same city, but Birgit left us a few years ago. Carla and I are based in Berlin. Me personally, I'm in Zehlendorf, in the beautiful outskirts of the southwest of Berlin by the Krumme-Lanke Lake.
And I'm
In a
not
townhouse.
But you're still essentially Hamburg, Berlin.
Yeah.
So that's not so tragic. What is Hamburg, Berlin with a train is what, hour and a half?
Yeah, it's 1 hour and a half, so it's okay.
So rehearsing is just a matter of saying your place or mine?
Yeah.
Actually,
Right.
we always rehearse in my place behind here.
Well, if I could come to your place and see all these books, I would too. I love books. It's painful to be in somebody else's apartment. I have my music room is full of books and music. I love it. It's fantastic.
Well, and Carla's house is actually special also because Arnold Schönberg used to live on that ground.
And especially the singer of Pierrot Lunaire, Albertine Zehme,
Yeah.
was living in my flat.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And Pierrot Lunaire was composed here, and the first rehearsals were here.
You live in the apartment where Arnold Schoenberg lived.
No, he had an extra house behind of our house, and the apartment was of Albertine Zehme.
Don't you love that sort of thing?
Yes, of
Good.
course.
Wonderful.
There were no way to don't come in this apartment. It was we had to take it.
This is one of the things that fascinated me when I finally came to Vienna. You know, I mean, and I still do. You walk around, you touch walls, you touch buildings, you look at plaques, you look where you're walking. You know, Schubert walked here, Schoenberg walked here, Mahler walked here. You know, everybody walked here. But a lot of that is also in Berlin. Berlin, you know, of course, was destroyed so profusely, but there's still, I love the fact that there's so many plaques in Berlin and so much reading that you can actually see good and bad things that happen there, but you can get this feeling of historical property, which, I mean, I want you to talk about yourselves and so forth, but actually this just tumbles me right into Boulanger. Why the Boulanger name? Why the Boulanger Trio? Tell us first about that, and then I want you to do a little bit of Wikipedia of yourselves so that our audience can get to know you more. Hey, so who wants to tell me why Boulanger?
So when we met, we wanted to find a name for our ensemble which really had a meaning for us. And Carla had just played a piece by Lily Boulanger the night before we met. So she was really, really inspired and right on the search for any trio works by her, and discovered amazing works, D'un matin de printemps and D'un soir triste. They weren't yet published. Lily had written them just before she died. And they are incredible, these two works. And so we thought we have to get the music, we have to play these pieces and make them known. And that gave us the idea to get more into finding out about the two sisters. And then we thought, well, Nadia is also so amazing with being one of the most important pedagogues.
Exactly. And people, if someone knows of our world, certainly Nadia Boulanger, the name goes across your map. Even I, as a singer, believe it or not. Then maybe comes the next information of Lili Boulanger, you know, two musical sisters. But then actually the whole the pedagogue is clear, but the composing thing, I have to tell you, I did not know that Nadia Boulanger composed until I don't know how much, and also incredible melody, beautiful songs. So your passion was as much her influence on music, which we're going to get to because of your program, but also their compositions, and both of them composed, correct?
Yes, and well, when Nadia recognized that her younger sister Lily was so much more talented than her in composing, she somehow decided to quit, and especially after the very early death of Lili Boulanger, she died in her 20s, 1918. She tried.
The flu.
Sorry?
Did she die of the flu in 1918?
I think, I don't know how you call it in English. It was a tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis. Well, we call it tuberculosis.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah. And that's why somehow she really tried to support her heritage, her compositions. So she wanted to help memories, to keep the memories of her sister alive, and to give the pieces of Lili Boulanger to the world.
And actually, the father, Ernest Boulanger, was already a composer. Mm-hmm. So this, the musical life of the family was really, really extraordinary. The kids were making music from a very, very early age. And they even had trouble with the neighbors because there was so much music in the house all the time. And Ernest Boulanger died surprisingly early. I don't remember exactly how old Nadia was, but she was
around
still
13.
Yeah, 13. And so she really felt she had to take over some of the responsibility for the family. She had to really support her mother, and studied harder and worked harder, and composed and took lessons and studied analysis, and collected a really, really broad really like she really digged into the music history and acquired a broad knowledge. Wow. And then she took part in the Prix de Rome competition as well, and didn't quite succeed. And then her 7 years younger sister came, and she got the first prize as first woman ever in the French history. And so from then on, Nadia said, I'm really gonna support my younger sister and become more of a pedagogue and a teacher.
Fantastic.
And then Lili Boulanger couldn't really go to the Villa Medici because it was only for men. She was the first woman who wins this competition, and it was not possible for a woman to join this year prize in Villa Medici.
What I didn't realize it was a musical family. I mean, like I said, you know Nadia, then you hear about Lili. Lili died in Didn't Debussy die of the flu in 1918? I think Debussy was a victim of the Spanish flu epidemic, if I remember correctly. But you know, I love trivia, and my mind. I'm either incredibly superficial, trivia heavy, or eclectic. I haven't decided yet, but. It doesn't matter. I didn't realize that Lili had died so early. Okay, let's hold the Boulanger. We have the Boulanger. Let's go back a step and catch up a little bit. If you ladies would, one by one, let us know where you come from, when you started music, how you got into it, and then maybe somebody tie us up how the three of you met, and just give us the story. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take you in screen sharing onto their website, which is a beautiful website, and you can read all of this, but it's probably more fun to have them tell you. So it's a lovely website. There's a wonderful excerpts, and I was listening to some wonderful Boulanger as well this morning. So anyway, well, but I'll show you how to get there, as well as the program that we're going to talk about on the Global Concert Hall. So who wants to start with the Wikipedia moment?
Okay, I can start, I think. Okay, my musical history began really early, in the age of 5. Like I think everybody in Germany, I learned to play the recorder. You call it, yeah? So everybody had to. and I started to learn piano, and then really I just accidentally happened to play violin because somebody said, oh, there's a really good violin teacher in music school, do you want to play violin? I said, okay, why not? I was the kind of girl like trying out anything, if it's sports or dance or music, so I just did anything in my childhood. So I started to play violin, and the really good thing was that immediately when I could play something, I started to play in orchestra, and they put me into chamber music groups. So music was always something to do together and to share music together. I think this is really why I end up here in my wonderful trio. We are together now for 15 years already. And so it's my second family here on the screen. And I think because really music was always making music, was always sharing music. And yeah, that's basically my, I think the reason why I'm here now.
Where did you go to school?
Oh, I'm in southern Germany, in Heilbronn. It was just a normal gymnasium. And yeah, and then I studied with a lot of Russian teachers. So I really love the Russian violin tradition and Russian violin sound. And then, of course, I wanted to experience something completely different. And I went to Berlin to study with a German violinist, Antje Walters, who really came from a completely different direction. So I learned all the classical and Baroque music really new. I learned Mozart was completely new, and then Bach was also completely new world for me. So, and we had, I had this different direction, of course, like everybody, doing a lot of master classes with great violinists, but always the focus was making music together, and making music with colleagues, with friends.
I'm always fascinated to hear violinists talk about sound. You know, in the general public, we often hear, you know, the Vienna sound, the Berlin sound, the London Symphony sound, certainly the famous Chicago sound, yada, yada, yada. But then when violinists start talking about schools of sound, when you reference the Russian, I mean, I'm just walking this through sort of a devil's advocate for our public too. Given a violin of a very high quality, when someone plays it, can you make different sounds depending on the school of your training? Is that a technical thing? I mean, if someone played it, you would say, they come from the Russian school, or no, they come from the Viennese school, or they probably studied in North Germany, or they never took a lesson in their life. That would be me if I played. It would go, oh God, stop.
Yeah, I mean, somehow I think it's maybe not exactly how you play the violin, how your technique is, but it's more like your inspiration, where the sound comes from. I think maybe a bit. You have the sound in mind you want to hear from your instrument, and then you touch it like I don't know. For me, it's really like a physical thing. It's like how I touch my violin. That's how it will sound. And so, like Russian, I have this full and clear, like, I don't know, Oistrach or whatever.
I was about to, we're talking Nathan Milstein and Oistrach and
yeah,
you know.
And that's for me like the Russian, and it's a kind of vibrato you do, and it's like only, it's so, I don't know, it's so violin focused, you know what I mean? Yeah. They're just standing there, and it's just here. So that's more, and I don't know. And maybe it's really, I think it's more like your idea how it will sound. And yes, I think a bit, you can hear it. For example, if I can say, Ilona with the cello comes from another tradition. So that was really, really exciting. Meeting each other to find a new sound from different directions coming, and to create in our ensemble, in our trio, and some kind of new instrument, new sound with even more influences. Maybe even you just tell where your sound inspiration comes from.
So my story, starting from the early beginning, my grandparents from my mother's side are from Estonia. They were Baltic Germans and were brought back to Germany in the 1940s, or 39 or 40. And my grandparents had this wonderful story, meeting each other through letters, being introduced by a common friend. And so they found each other and had my mother in 1944. And my grandmother, her dream was to become a music teacher. She had been playing piano and harpsichord and recorders, and she, being in the situation, having to support the family while her husband was already working, she couldn't finish her studies, and so she just had this this room in her house, the mansarde, where all the kids from the neighborhood came to sing and play on Orff instruments and play recorder. And me and my brother and my cousins and all the neighbors, they got through this early school with my grandmother. We played in the churches for all Christmas and Easter days, and on Sundays sometimes. And so that was my very, very early introduction to music. And then I started playing the piano with my grandmother also when I was 5, and I picked up the cello when I was 7. And so, as Birgit is also saying, for me, what really carried me through childhood and youth was playing with colleagues, with friends, with other kids. I loved my youth orchestra experiences. I loved discovering chamber music, and for a long time, I actually wanted to become an orchestra musician. That was my dream already. I have, when I entered the gymnasium, 5th school year in Germany, I already wrote on this this letter we had to write to introduce ourselves that I wanted to become an orchestra musician. And but then I loved discovering chamber music also. I had the scores of all Brahms and Schubert quartet and printed works, and we were playing, we had these sight reading sessions at the youth orchestra sessions, and I really, really loved that. And I started my studies in Germany, but then had the big luck to meet Zara Nelsova, who was already in her 80s at that time, and she invited me to come to the States to study with her. She was at Juilliard and at University at the time, and so I joined her there for 2 years, 2 amazing years, full of inspiration. She is, I think, probably the only cellist who had the luck to study with Pablo Casals, Gregor Piatigorsky, and Emanuel Feuermann, and so she was a huge source of inspiration for me. And I met Javi Shapiro there, and I met the Guarneri Quartet there, and they were my heroes from childhood, actually, also because my parents had the recordings of the Beethoven string quartets on LP, and I listened to them all the time when I was lonely at home, around like 15 or 16 years old, and the family had gone on vacation. I stayed just at home to practice and learn new pieces, and I listened to the Beethoven quartets. So that was a really, really inspiring time. And then I came back to Europe and spent 3 years at the Menuhin Academy in Switzerland. At the time when Yehudi Menuhin was still alive. I had the chance to meet him and work with him as well. We played a few concerts with him, and so that was the time when he left the world also. And Alberto Lisi was still there, his student, and he was the inspiration there. And we had many, many wonderful concerts there. And so since then, I really, really wanted to become a chamber music player and find a group for myself, either trio or quartet. And I'm so, so happy it worked out in the end.
Well, clearly it worked out. I've been over the last several months with so many of your violinist colleagues. Yehudi Menuhin just keeps showing up, and I never was privileged to meet the great man, but we had correspondence because back in the day I was invited down to do recital in the festival when I first started, and he was still alive. And in the last announcement, it didn't work out, but we had some lovely correspondence. But he must have just been an amazing human being. And musician.
A big source of inspiration for me.
Was Daniel Hope around when you were down there? Do you know Daniel?
We met him at another occasion. We met him in Trondheim once. We heard the last concerts with the Boulanger Trio, actually.
All right.
But at the Menuhin Academy, he was connected to the Menuhin School in.
Right. But I was surprised. Last week in my conversation with David Garrett, his classical pedagogy genealogy, and he also was incredibly close to Yehudi. You know, and then there's this other amazing Russian teacher in Zurich, Bronn.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever work with him? Did you ever go there? Or does one go by and take a class, or does one actually probably go get in their studio and stay for a while?
Well, he came to the Menuhin Academy once. There were
All
always
right.
guest teachers visiting, and Sascha Bronn came there once and stayed for a few days and coached all the violinists. And also Walter Levin came from the La Salle Quartet. And he was actually the one who really, really encouraged me to find my own chamber music ensemble. That I really thank him for that.
Fantastic. And here comes the pianist, Karla.
Yes, I'm born in Romania. My name is very German because of my father,
Yeah.
who was, from the minority of Germans in Banat, in Western Romania. And yes, my mother was Hungarian, and yeah, all the whole family is from another edge of Europe. But yes, we were in Bucharest since tea, and yes, at the age of 4, my brother had piano lessons at home in our place. And my mother was always playing and improvising at the piano, and I loved it. It was the only interesting thing in the whole life in my life. And I always were in the room when the piano teacher came, and I really wanted to catch her, to make her teach me.
Yeah.
And yes, so she did. She began to teach me, and not my brother, without that our parents knew it. So
they didn't know?
No, they didn't knew. We were alone at home with her and with our grandmother, and our grandmother didn't know what we are doing there. So she taught me, and after 2 months or something like that, my parents were, you are playing piano. How?
That's fantastic.
Yes. And then,
So
yes,
did your mother play by ear, or had she also been trained?
Yeah, she had also the piano lessons in her youth, but then she was beginning to play a lot by ear, because yes, she loved to catch up melodies and to make her own thing from that. Her brother is a great composer and jazz pianist, more in the also Romanian pop and songs. Yeah, he is a genius. All the jazz musicians from Romania know him, because he was very important in the former times. So then I had a beautiful, great piano teacher after the first one, and she was at the Georgianescu Liceo. So yeah, it's a school only for music in Bucharest, and it was a great opportunity to be there. And until my 12th year, I was there. And then in Bonn, we moved with the whole family to the former capital city of Germany. So then I had lessons with the Professor Karla Haltenwanger, and I all the 2 weeks I went to this other city. But from the very beginning of making music, it was very important for me to play with others and to make music together. I couldn't imagine to be alone on stage.
So the whole concerto world or recital world, that really wasn't what interested you.
No,
but I have to say, Karla, she is a fabulous solo concerto pianist. I have to say, I love your Shostakovich, what you play. And she is always studying secretly all the solo repertoire. She just doesn't tell now, but she can play.
I was getting this. I was getting this drift of self-effacing modesty. I assumed that there was another layer of music going on in there someplace. That's fantastic.
And the last thing she studied, she just told me, so I will tell it now to public. She studied during Corona the new Schumann sonata she didn't know before. So she's quite proud of it, I guess. And she's doing it excellent because I mean we can perform for each other. So that's a good thing as a chamber music group. You're never alone. We love that. Playing together.
But apropos, do all of you have, under circumstances, I mean, you're not now, you have your trio and you're doing this, it's fine. But if somebody called you up and wanted, you know, the Don Juan, or they wanted the Dvorak violin concerto or something, that's just not something you all do, or a solo recital. That's not, that might have been in your thoughts past, but right now it's just totally and has been the trio, right? It's not a very clear question.
The thing is that,
sorry, Ilona.
The trio is just taking up all our energy.
Oh, yeah.
So it would be nice to have an occasional different project, but there's always something more important with the trio. And so that's very often an easy decision towards the trio.
The stupid part of my question is it makes it sound like you've sacrificed this other great life because you only have this trio. And that's just not what I meant at all. So, in fact, let me just, ladies and gentlemen, let me read you. I mean, you know, on the top of their website, das Boulanger Trio besitzt alle Triumphe, das Erbe des legendären Beaux-Arts Trio anzutreten. The Boulanger Trio belongs to them all the triumph and the legacy of the legendary Beaux-Arts Trio. That's incredibly high praise. That's the highest, that's a very, I mean, as a musician, I get that. Maybe our general public aren't quite sure, but the Beaux-Arts Trio was, that's kind of it, right? So this is really serious. You founded yourselves in 2006. How did that happen? Did you know each other before 2006? Who started it? Who made the phone call? Well, did you audition one another? I mean, how does this work?
Kind of like, I mean, Ilona and me, we met in another ensemble, just like you sometimes get a phone call, hey, you have time to play this and that concert. So we met there and we just thought, well, it works out really good together to play. And so we thought, okay, what about founding a piano trio? Would be a nice idea. And we already finished studying, and I worked at the Deutsche Oper in Berlin, and Ilona was based in Hamburg at that time. And so we just called around asking professors if they have like students who already kid some university around Berlin, Hamburg, so it's not too far to travel. And so one of the phone numbers, no, you even didn't get a phone number, Ilona.
No, I was at the European Chamber Music Academy at the ECMA just as a listener because I was so into chamber music already at the time that I was just listening to the classes there. And then I asked Eckhard Heiligers from the Trio Jean-Paul if he knew any pianists around. And he said, well, I'm living in Zurich. I know nobody in northern Germany, but asked Markus Becker, who was teaching a chamber music class at in Hanover.
He was my teacher.
So I called Markus, and I had known him for a long time. And so I called him, and he told me about two of his students, and I knew one of them that wouldn't be the right one. And then, but Karla's name somehow stuck to me. And he said, I'm going to ask her where are her plans, and then I'm going to let you know. But I'm very impatient with things like this. So I just Googled, and that was a time when it was not so common yet to find everybody's information on Facebook and on their own website. But somehow I found very few details about Karla, and I found her phone number. So I just called her, and we talked for 45 minutes and got along great. And it really felt like we wanted to get to know each other. And so we arranged a meeting, a first rehearsal at Karla's place in Berlin at that time. It was the 9th February 2006, so that's last month. It was exactly 15 years ago. And we decided for a Beethoven trio, Opus 1 number 3, the C minor trio, and Schumann and some Shostakovich. And we prepared those pieces, all being very nervous because we had the feeling that we really, really had to prove to each other that we were good enough to make a song. Birgit and I were thinking, oh, we hope she likes us, we hope she likes us. And Karla was thinking a little bit the same. And then we played through the first movement of the Beethoven, and we were really, really happy because it felt so good. And
it was so clear that I can understand what you were playing, and we didn't had to explain how to begin together or how to end together, because it felt very, very good.
Natural.
So
natural, yes.
And so that's actually what Birgit mentioned before already. We really come from very different musical backgrounds. Birgit had her Russian teachers. I was very influenced by the Jewish traditions, and Karla was studying in the German piano school. But we felt in the end the musical goals were the same, and we were so open to go on this journey of discovering music, finding our own musical language. And now after 15 years, it's one language, which combines the three personalities and the three different backgrounds, and it's really one musical language. And so that's part what made our ensemble so successful. And the other really, really important part is, I think, that we were all so experienced already with also bad experiences, chamber music wise, where people could not really communicate with each other. And we have these abilities to, if problems arise, to just always find some solution immediately. Of course, there are disagreements musically and also on other topics, but in the end, we belong to each other. We are a musical family, as Birgit stated earlier, and there is always a solution for everything, and we are always focusing on finding it immediately. And so that's why we still love being together at the rehearsals and traveling together and seeing each other at breakfast the next morning after a concert and traveling back together, and just always nicer to be with my two colleagues than being alone.
I mean, I can hear, if we were doing public questions, I can just hear somebody saying, now, what happens when you just can't agree? And has it ever broken down to where you just say, the hell with it, and stomp off and stop rehearsal, and pieces of music flying in the air, stands falling over? I mean, does it ever go that far?
I mean, no, that not, but we really can argue about like a staccato for years in a piece. That's not a problem for us. I mean, there is different interpretation of, or a subito forte or a staccato or whatever. So, but we decided, hey, we have a lot of concerts, so this concert we do it like that, and the other concert we do it the other way. So, and I think what we all really learned is that there's not a right or wrong, not even in the ensemble. I mean, if there really is such a strong feeling that a phrase has to play like that, you absolutely have to respect it from your colleagues. I mean, it's not. We have so much experience in making music and studied so much music, so we really have to try to get open again and never take it personal. Of course, there are different opinions and different ways of playing.
In questions like that, I try, when I get that as a chamber music singer, as a lead singer, you know, and I just try to explain to people that music is a conversation. It's not about being right or wrong about the Google map, you know. And as you say, I mean, if you know, some, especially Wolfram, who I've worked with for years, Wolfram Rieger, you know, there's some things that he feels very strongly about, and so I want to try that. Most of us, it's not about disagreement. It's about oh, I've never tried that, or I haven't thought of that, or I wouldn't do that. That would not have been my instinct to do that. Let me try that. But again, it's this, music is such like I said, it's a conversation. It's, I think our public, because music education is being so systematically removed from the schools, for I think all the wrong reasons. I want to ask you about that, but let me just finish my thought. I think there's an awful lot of political decisions about the arts in schools where they undervalue them because they think it's about kids becoming musicians or in a profession, rather than understanding the value to their general psyche, empathy, in German Rechnungsfähigkeit und so weiter, all these different aspects of learning and using your mind that are so demonstrably augmented and supported by musical education. And I wanted to come swinging back to you, Birgit, when you talked about, you so wonderfully said, oh, like all children, we played the block flute in school. Well, all German children will give you that, and maybe some Austrian, a lot of Austrian. Certainly in America, those days are gone. But I wanted to ask you, is that still the case in Germany? Or are you seeing and are you concerned about musical education being systematically lessened in the curriculum?
My experience where I live, and I live in a village close to Hamburg, is that there is still a lot of musical education, but somehow not for boys. It's more girls like learning piano where I live. But in public schools, I have two kids, and they both have a really good musical education in public school. And they are learning instruments. Also, Karla's daughter, she learned Blockflöte in school, I think.
Yes, and in Berlin you have a lot of schools which are with a special music, I don't know, classes, or and they are really providing the music education, and they have all an orchestra, and they have all to know the notation, and until the fifth degree they are quite good.
But it really depends on the teacher and the school, you have to say. I mean, they try to kind of, and but it really depends what school it is, what teacher. And I think it's also getting less. It's less than when I was young. So it was like not a public school education, musical education I did, but it was a music school, and the parents had to pay for it. But it was just normal to give your kid there in the end. It was just common just to learn it. Yeah.
Well, if you know, I've said this so often, if the German-speaking world throws in the towel on the notion of Bildung, the entire world will just collapse in and on itself. You know, this, you can't even translate the word Bildung. You know, I like to romantically call it knowing more tomorrow than you know today. But that's probably rather simplistic. But the Bildung is a sense of world. It's a sense of personal understanding of your place in what you call existence. And I you know, so much of music is so part of that, as much as literature, as much as the group effort. What I love about us talking today is this beauty of sharing music experience with one another. And I think our general public, even, I think we need to encourage them, but even by sitting, when COVID finally passes and we can all sit again, but to have the collective experience of a musical moment is one, great, fabulous, fantastic. It can be incredibly exponential, it can be entertaining, it can be deeply moving. But the key, it seems to me, is and this is the permission that I want to give all my public, or our public. It's the personal journey you take in your musical moment that is so important. Yes, it is a collective, social, community, gemeinsame Erfahrung, togetherness to experience this. But in fact, what you take home from the Shostakovich or the Riem or the Pincher or the Mozart or the Schumann individually, this is what is important. And this requires engagement. This requires heart and mind accessing that musical moment. And it's to me, it's like, I like to describe it as an island. You get to go to your own island. And then what really irritates me, and I'm just sort of ramping here, is that when somebody starts putting measurements on that experience so that somebody feels inadequate for their own, well, I didn't know much about the Shostakovich. I kind of like the Shostakovich. And somebody drinking a coffee in the palace saying, oh, God, that music drives me crazy. And it's so complex and all this kind of, all that is just not important. Or God forbid, some critics had a bad meal and his stomach's upset, or her is upset. And the next day they read that everything that person they thought was wonderful in the concert actually wasn't very good, says this person. I mean, there's just so many layers of our public response and private response to the music world. And where I'm really going with this is that I honestly believe that the streaming world does provide a quicker conduit between public and artist and musical moment. It doesn't replace public concerts. It never should and never meant to do that. It's an augmentation. I think our streaming world and these kinds of conversations will do enormous amounts of good moving forward for people to realize that it is their relationship to music that we're trying to protect and offer them. We're trying to give them on-ramps to this long highway of beautiful music, and how incredibly important it is to building their own sense of worth and values in the world. And I don't mean to tie it up so much or preach here, but talking at first about a trio that's founded on a name of a woman who lived 100 years ago and all of those connections, and that coming through and picking up the mantle of yet another very famous in our classic world, Boulanger Trio, and we as musicians carry a light, carry a flame of creation, and we hand it from generation to generation. And this is what I think is so incredibly beautiful about your story. And of course, it's been enormously successful. I'm talking as if you're a new group, but perhaps people I don't think are so aware of trios and quartets. They see the name come up, they see the placard, whatever else, but it doesn't feel like we seem to be in a very soloist-dominated mentality. But that's another subject. So to shut me up, we're going to do some screen sharing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go, and the next thing you should see should be actually, yes, this will be the website. This is the IDAGIO website, idagio.com. You can, by the way, you can do it on your computer if you just go to idagio.com. IDAGIO, IDAGIO, IDAGIO.com. And you can download the app for your telephone, for your iPad, for your Android, whatever you want, or you can just do it online. It's a wonderfully accessible, huge database, over 20,000 composers, and I don't know how many thousands of hours of listening, of streaming, which follows you around. It's really, really quite wonderful. That was the basis of Idagio.com. Then we were always talking about, I've been with Idagio from the beginning, and I love the platform. There was always the idea that it needed to have video. And with the pandemic and with COVID, literally a year ago, it's hard to imagine, but literally a year ago, we said we need to push our calendar up and look, let's do something called IDAGIO Live. We have a cooperation with YouTube, and let's get musicians talking about what they do. So I took on a couple of programs, and they both stayed, one on song on Tuesdays and these wonderful visitations on Thursday. And then in June, Global Concert Hall was launched under the IDAGIO flagship. And this is really fun because the Global Concert Hall, yes, it is a paywall, very modest, I think 10 or 11. The split of the income is 80% to the artist and 20% to the platform, which I think is incredibly wonderful. It is also not a catalog nor a broadcasting service. It is a platform that makes production possible in a wider public sense and more available. We have people watching Global Concert Hall literally all over the globe. And a sine qua non of the Global Concert Hall is to visit with the artists in their program, before or after, or both. And also, it only lives for the exact amount of time, at least 24 hours, if not 36 or 48 hours, but it is determined by the artist or the presenter themselves. And so some things we have up there that stay for a month or just stay there if you want to go. Other people say, no, I'd like to come down. And then it's gone. We are not we're not a broadcasting company. We're not a catalog company. There are no, in that sense, rights that are being cleared. Nobody owns it. Nobody's manipulated the artist or confined it. It is literally going to a concert. And yes, now, COVID time, probably more digital. But even when COVID is past and we are back in the concert hall, this is a new augmentation of concert life. The digital, what we call analog, which is this, and synchronous recordings, which are in real time. Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal development. So if you go to the idagio.com platform online, you will see this page. This is down here when you look at all the global concert halls. And this is this wonderful program called the Boulangerie. And this is actually a series that the Trio Boulanger has that I'm going to have them talk about. And this is a very special concert with all sorts of amazing things. So I guess we should just, first of all, before we go, I'm going to get out here. I just want to show you, if you then go to the Boulanger Trio website, you can see these remarkable people and you can see their concerts and you can read their biography and you can go, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is the video site, which have these embedded videos where you can listen to them play, which is really quite wonderful. I mean, from Serha to Boulanger to Matthias Pincher to Robert Schumann, as we say in America, knock yourself out. Anyway, that's a little tour of things. So I wanted to ask you, because I love this idea. I really giggled when I saw Boulangerie, because your repertoire is very classical. I mean, it's very, very wide. And I suppose when you first started out, were you more based in classical repertoire? Was it more, as we call it, the meat and potatoes, or were you always an eclectic group?
So from the very first concert, we actually had contemporary music on our programs. We played Wolfgang Riem's Fremde Szene 3 already on the very first program.
Fantastic.
And we discovered with this work that all three of us really, really curious to discover the music of today, and that for us it's really, really important thing to deal with this, to see what is happening today. That's a reflection of a mirror of our time. And
yes,
it has been a wonderful journey. So many composers of today, and then after some years of playing trio together, we thought we wanted to have our own concert series, and that's when the idea of the Boulangerie came up.
It's fantastic.
And our idea was to always present contemporary composer who is there in person. We've had Toshio Hosokawa, Matthias Pincher, Olga Neuwirth, Kaya Sariao, just to name a few. And Friedrich Zerha, of course, who just celebrated his 95th birthday.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, incredible.
I did his last opera, The Riese von Steinfeld, in Vienna, and worked with him intimately. And I'm sure he wanted to kill me most of the time, but we became very close. He's written some marvelous songs. I mean, actually, this list you have here, Wolfgang Riem, Matthias Pincher, Hosokawa, they've all written wonderful vocal music that I've been able to get my teeth around. In fact, Wolfgang wrote me a wonderful cycle on Nietzsche extracts, and I have always thought it sounded more like a string quartet or string trio. I think I'm going to write him and say, why doesn't he make this into a string trio? And I'll give you all a call.
What about a piano version with voice and piano trio?
Even better.
No, but what I meant is a piano trio. I meant you to leave the piano, but give it. It's always had this, tarantula kind of feeling to it. We haven't done it so often. But anyway, this is not about me. This is about you. Getting to this Boulangerie, is the Boulangerie series in Hamburg and Berlin?
Yeah. And we had also some guest years in Vienna. We were invited, I think, 2 years in a row. We were at the Musikverein also with the Boulangerie.
Right.
And
in the Brahmsaal or in the Gläserner Saal?
No, downstairs in the Gläserner Saal. So we try to keep it intimate, because the idea of the series is not only to have a guest composer on stage, not really like an academic talking, but just why he does compose, why it's so important for him to express himself as a composer.
Right.
And then after, of course, nowadays it's not possible, but afterwards we invite the whole audience to have a glass of wine and have some bread and cheese with us, and just to get in touch with us and the composer. And the composer always stays, and you can just talk to everybody. And also the audience in between, they are talking with each other, and it's okay if somebody's come and say, oh, I don't know what to do with this music. So, but you get in conversation and you communicate about it, and that makes it so great for us, because
incredibly
we also
important.
want to know who is sitting there in the hall and listen to us. It's sometimes, I don't know how you feel it, but I really want to know with whom I share
Well,
my music or the music I'm playing.
Incredibly important. I mean, that is, as an artist myself, as a singer, musician, I find it, and now, you know, in my elder statesman years, I find that the biggest cancer that's come into music, the music industry, is this idea that going to a concert, an opera or something, is a passive experience. It's just crazy. It's just crazy, and it's incredibly important to have these conversations so that somebody who just likes to listen to music hears you and sees your eyes glisten and hears your passion, not just as a young person, but as a musician. I want people to understand why I'm playing this. Where did it come from? And of course, the composers feel the same way. I mean, Matthias Pincher I know quite well and spent some time. Also, all these men have written beautiful pieces that I premiered, but Matthias is I mean, they're all incredibly interesting people. I think Wolfgang Riem's writings on music are some of those beautiful literature about music that exists in the 20th century. But Matthias is this mind and this you know. I'll tell you a Matthias Pincher story. He wrote this wonderful piece on Songs of Solomon in Hebrew, because he speaks Hebrew beautifully. And I love to sing Hebrew, but he wrote this piece. It was commissioned by the New York Phil when I was there. And he sent it to me, and I went. And then I realized he lived in New York, so I called him up. It was literally 5 blocks from where I lived. I said, I can see your apartment. He said, oh, good. And he just said, wait. I said, okay, you've written it. You teach me. Get over here. And he came, and we just syllable for syllable went through it and figured it out. But he's an incredibly and to have him when he talks to publics about music, and especially now as he's conducting and so forth, this is the experience that, well, what IDAGIO is trying to capture, but what I love about your passion, the three of you, is this is what you're trying to give the public. And of course, that's where this Boulangerie series comes in. Now, does the Boulangerie series, is it based on, for lack of a better word, eclecticism? I mean, it's not just avant-garde music. You're also getting into a little bit of the crossover world.
I mean, it's it's based really on the Wednesday meetings and the apartment of Nadia Boulanger. She had every Wednesday, it was like Wednesdays with Nadia somehow, and these meetings, her classes in her apartment at the Rue Balu in Paris, and there also she wanted her students really study old music. Like there were always Bach fugues played, and it was an analysis, how we call it, Analysestunden.
Yeah. Analysis lessons, but there were also like new pieces tried out, and also artists from other arts, like not only music but literature or painters, they came also to these meetings. And always after the lessons there was some kind of get together, and they served tea and cookies, and so and all the students called it the Boulangerie. So we tried to do it also somehow in a memory of Nadia Boulanger.
And normally we have a living composer as our guest. And actually the first Boulangerie we did on IDAGIO was with Matthias Pincher in November. I
love it.
And it was a fantastic talk on stage, going in the cyberspace, somehow feeling really weird, but we had a fantastic day with him. And we also started to portray some composers who are not there anymore. Like we had Maurizio Kagel and Hans-Werner Henze, and then we invited somebody who was close to them to speak. on stage. And so this Boulangerie Novum as well, because this is now dedicated to Nadia Boulanger as an incredible pedagogue. And so this time we won't be having a talk on stage, but we invited Loretta Stern, wonderful.
Yes, exactly. Please tell me about Loretta Stern.
Carla, she knows her best.
Loretta Stern is a wonderful actress, a German actress, and also she's moderating some series at Arte in former times, and yes, she's also a writer. She has written a beautiful children's book, Der kleine Ton,
about music.
About music. Yes,
right.
She's also a great singer and musician, and we work since 6 years together on some concerts and very small series. And yes, she's a wonderful person. She's a genius as well, because she's in so different things always, and yeah, I really admire her.
And she's going to narrate this program. And what is that? Is that original text, or is it explaining the pieces, or how does that work?
Yes, actually, she will make a little bit of Nadia Boulanger portrait.
Ah, wonderful.
Through her writings or letters, and also some words about her from the students of Nadia Boulanger. So also a little bit about the pieces, but it's not a really description, but
right,
more as a lyric thing.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to do screen sharing one more time because I want to go back. I forgot to show you something, and that is, and I feel bad about it. If you go to the like I showed you, this is the IDAGIO site. But and if you just simply go and you put in your search window Boulanger Trio, you will get their massive and extremely fascinating discography. Massive, not, but large. Large and with all sorts of repertoire, from the most traditional to the most avant-garde and so forth. So you want to do that, and of course, I mean, anything you click on, let's just click on Mr. Serha, since he's, and with these 5 movements, it's all just Serha, fantastic. And you can listen to this, and if you like it, you can go here and you can say, well, not even if you don't like it, put it to a playlist, and immediately you make create a new playlist, and you say, this is the trio. Boulanger, not Trio, but Trio. Boulanger. We'll say that sorry, I cannot type, but never mind. And right, we create a playlist, and I go over here, and I have this playlist that is instantaneous. And by the way, if I picked up my telephone or my iPad right now, it's there. So you can create really wonderful playlists, and when you subscribe to IDAGIO, you can keep them, you can download them, whatever else. It's not a very expensive subscription, very much worth it, because you come into the whole ecosystem of IDAGIO.com, which is quite great. I'm not really trying to sell IDAGIO.com so much as how much it functions so well and how much wonderful music you can take with you. He's a great composer. All right, so I just wanted to say you need to go back and have a look at the Trio Boulanger, or a Trio Boulanger, I've almost said. And I'll come back out here, right?
And so what you can see
look.
On IDAGIO from Friday onwards is this CD, which is brand new, and this is exactly the program that we are going to play on Friday.
Oh, fantastic!
In the concert hall. This is this compilation of works by Jean Francais, Leonard Bernstein, Aaron Copland, Philip Glass, Astor Piazzolla, and Quincy Jones, who were all students of Nadia Boulanger.
I can hardly wait. Ladies and gentlemen, you really, really want to see this program. You really want it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and everything about music that's important today. Ladies, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I wish you all the best, and I do hope that our paths professionally cross sometime. That would be more than exciting. Do you ever add another one to call ourselves a quartet? Actually, no, then we would lose the piano. No, we're going to
start working with singers. We love working with singers.
Yeah, I know you have. Have you done, for instance, these, you know, Daniel Hope and I started doing some of these, the huge list of Beethoven, Haydn folk songs. Have those you've done?
Well, we
Or
have
some?
recorded some of the Beethoven songs. You'll find them on our IDAGIO list. The CD.
Okay. Gives me something to listen to. They're incredible songs. I don't know why they're not more well known. Absolutely beautiful.
Wonderful.
That would be a lot of fun. Anyway, ladies, hang on. We're just going to say good night to everybody, and then we'll do a closeout. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Thursday. Do check out Boulanger, check out IDAGIO. Have a great life. We'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.